After 6 years of marriage to Howard Jones, his touch grew increasingly rare. By the final year, we had become little more than two strangers sharing the same bed. It wasn't until I decided to break the silence and confront him head-on that I learned the truth. He was having an affair. Relief washed over his face as he exhaled and said, "Don't worry. I'll handle it. She's still so young, I can't waste her time." I stood there, frozen, my heart turning to ice in an instant. 8 years together. 6 years of marriage. And in the moment of reckoning, his first instinct wasn't fear that I had discovered his betrayal. It was concern for her wasted youth. Some things are impossible to ignore no matter how much I try to deceive myself. Especially when the lies are this clumsy. On Howard's 35th birthday, he was out of town on a business trip. I wanted to surprise him, so I showed up unannounced at his hotel room. When he opened the door, there was a fleeting moment of shock on his face. But that was it. No joy. No excitement at my sudden arrival. I stood there, arms full of gifts, yet he made no move to take anything from me. Instead, he just kept repeating, "I thought it was Alicia dropping off some documents." Alicia, his assistant. I said nothing. My eyes swept over the room. A large bouquet of roses sat on the coffee table. Next to it was a brand new pair of high-end VR glasses, freshly unboxed. I glanced down at the bag in my hand. Inside was the exact same model. Howard loved gaming, always collecting the latest tech. Turns out, whoever sent him that gift and I had the same idea. Before I could ask, he blurted out nervously, "It's just a birthday gift from some coworkers. So, I need to use the bathroom." And just like that, he fled. I sank onto the couch. The summer heat felt suffocating. A storm rolled in, heavy rain pounding against the window. I looked at the cake in my bag, his favorite chocolate ice cream cake. I had waited in line just to get it. It was already melting. And just like that cake, I was slipping away too. He still hadn't come out of the bathroom. By the time he finally emerged, he looked almost relieved to see me still there. "I already told you. I was planning to celebrate my birthday with you and Olivia when I got back. You didn't have to rush all the way here. It's too much trouble for you." I said nothing, just stared at him. He kept talking as if to fill the silence. He rummaged through the bag, pulling out each item. "Ashley, you even made me cinnamon rolls? That's so sweet of you. Wow, you really went out of your way for this cake. It's so hard to find. How long did you wait in line? And this VR headset. I actually love this one even more." I cut him off. "Did you delete everything from your phone? You hid in the bathroom long enough." My fingers dug into the couch, gripping so hard my nails ached. Saying those words out loud made it harder to breathe. But while I was unraveling, he remained perfectly composed. "Ashley, what are you even talking about? Since when did you become so suspicious?" I already explained, it's just a gift from coworkers. I stared at him, feeling like I had stepped into some twisted farce. His calm indifference was worse than an outright confession. I would have preferred panic, guilt, fear, anything but this casual dismissal. It made me realize, this whole time, our relationship had been nothing but a one-woman performance. I sat there, forcing myself to stay still, to stay composed while he wove his story. Until, finally, he ran out of things to say. And then, as if I were some kind of confidant, he sighed and started talking about her. He told me how naive she was. How much she reminded him of a younger me. How cute her little quirks were. How deeply she adored him. And then, when he mentioned how she made him coffee every morning, a small smile flickered across his face. I didn't interrupt. But my chest ached so badly it felt like something inside me was being torn apart. Each detail he recalled was another knife slicing through me. I could hardly breathe. And then he said the words that made my ears ring. "Ashley, I'm sorry. But nothing inappropriate happened. I promise. I'll take care of this. She's still so young, I can't waste her time." Just like that, the world around me seemed to collapse. 8 years together. 6 years of marriage. And at this moment he wasn't afraid of betraying me. He was afraid of wasting her youth. The untouched glass of water he had set in front of me, I picked it up and threw it in his face. He wiped it away, his voice still maddeningly calm. "Ashley, I understand how you feel. I didn't want this to happen either. I had heard enough." I grabbed my bag and walked toward the door. But just as I reached it, I stopped. I turned back. His expression was blank with surprise. and then I slapped him. Twice. By the time I headed back, the rain had stopped. But the air was thick and stifling like a steam bath. My dress clung to my skin, soaked through with sweat and humidity, making me feel like I had just been pulled from the ocean. With no suitable flights available, I took the next closest option, a train. I caught my reflection in the window and realized my face was streaked with tears. How pathetic. How ridiculous. On his birthday, my husband had sat there pouring his heart out, not to me but about her. Telling me how he had fallen in love with another woman. Did he really believe I would never leave him? The more I thought about it, the harder it was to control the flood of emotions. A few strangers had already started glancing in my direction. I couldn't stand their quiet concern, their pitying stares. So I buried my face in my arms, resting against the small table beside me. I just needed a moment to collect myself. I didn't want to break down in public, to look so utterly defeated. But the more I tried to hold back the tears, the harder they fell. By the time we pulled into the station, I noticed something beside me, a small pack of tissues left by a fellow passenger. The kindness of a stranger. It was more than what the man who once vowed to love and protect me had given. I tucked the tissues into my bag, then pulled out my oversized sunglasses and slipped them on. My eyes were swollen beyond recognition. But when I got home, I would have to pull myself together. I couldn't let my daughter see me like this. That's what happens after marriage and kids, isn't it? Even pain has to be scheduled. There's always someone else who needs you first. I called my best friend Anna and asked her to take Olivia for a couple of days. After taking care of everything, I stepped into the bathroom and let the hot water run over me, trying to wash away the exhaustion clinging to my body. Then I sat in my bedroom, staring into the darkness until deep into the night. There were no tears left to cry. Why was I the only one suffering? Why was Howard so calm, so utterly unaffected? Scenes flashed through my mind, each moment in this marriage where my dignity had been chipped away bit by bit. The way he opened that hotel door. The expression on his face as he told me how he had fallen for her. For a moment it felt like all my strength had drained away. Like everything I had fought for had been meaningless. I must be the most foolish woman alive. How had I slept beside a man who had been cheating for so long, yet remained oblivious? A powerful urge overtook me. I wanted to know everything. Every detail. Every lie. Every secret. I got up and rummaged through the cabinet, finding one of Howard's old phones. He was an Apple fanatic, buying the latest model the moment it was released, often leaving his old ones behind without even logging out. And just like that, I found the messages. Her name was Evelyn White. She had been 2 years behind him in college. On WhatsApp he had saved her contact as Minnie because, how sweet, Minnie Mouse was her favorite character. Their messages went back 3 years. That was when Evelyn had just graduated, drowning in stress over her thesis and job applications. And that was when Howard, returning to campus as an honored alumnus, had met her again. One message stood out to me. A Saturday. A thank you text. Howard. Thank you so much. I never could have finished this paper without you. I didn't even get a chance to properly thank you. Please let me take you out to dinner. A Saturday. I stared at the date and my mind reeled back to that day. I had been 6 or 7 months pregnant with Olivia. Our new house had just been renovated and we needed to buy furniture. Howard had said he was too busy with work, leaving me to handle most of it alone. I spent weeks running around, finalizing details, walking miles every day to get everything done. That Saturday morning, he had rushed out in a hurry. I had been waiting in the house, dealing with the workers installing our furniture. He came back late that afternoon. His face was calm. He told me there had been an unexpected work emergency, so he couldn't make it back to help. Then he flopped onto the couch, exhausted. Not long after, the power went out. I picked up a book and started fanning him. Half asleep, he cracked his eyes open, kissed my pregnant belly and murmured, "Ashley, how are you always so good to me? I'm so lucky to have you." Then, smiling, he took the book from my hands and started fanning me instead. I had once thought it was a sweet, intimate moment, a picture of our growing family's love. But now I knew the truth. That same day he had been with her. When he kissed my belly, was he imagining our family's happy future? Or was he worrying about whether his beloved Evelyn would graduate on time? I could barely keep reading. Every message felt like a slap in the face. Each one corresponded to a moment in my life. a moment I had once thought was happy, whole, secure. But while I was basking in the warmth of our little family, my husband's heart had long since drifted away. In the messages, she reminded him to eat breakfast on time. He encouraged her to work hard and take care of herself. They planned their next dinner, their next movie night. They always had something to talk about. Howard cared about her more than he ever did about our family. He pulled strings to get her job referrals. He meticulously edited her resume, line by line. Even after she started working, he helped her land clients and close big deals. They celebrated everything together: her promotion, scoring tickets to her favorite concert. Any little joy, any achievement, she shared it with him first. And he was always there for her. I scrolled back up to her WhatsApp status. People always cling to the things they fell for at first sight. Their last exchange made my stomach turn. Howard, ever the wise mentor, advising her, "You have to be brave. Step out and chase your happiness." And her reply, "The happiness I want was never mine to begin with. It's fine. This is enough." I stared at the screen. I had spent years convincing myself that Howard was just tired, that work had drained him, that marriage naturally loses its spark. That was never the truth. He had simply been giving all his love, attention, and care to someone else. By the time Howard returned, I had already hired a lawyer to draft the divorce papers. He barely glanced at them before setting them aside, his expression darkening. Then came the outrage. "Ashley, is this really necessary? Nothing ever happened between us. After all these years, do you really have to do this?" The pressure in my chest, the anger I had been holding back, finally exploded. I screamed at him, voice shaking with fury. "Oh, so now you care about our years together? Then tell me, Howard, was I just a damn fool this whole time? You think as long as you didn't sleep with her, you're some kind of saint?" He let out a frustrated sigh, as if I were the unreasonable one. "Ashley, you're not thinking straight. I'm not going to fight with you right now. I admit I made mistakes. But I never once did anything to betray you. When you calm down, let's sit down and talk this through." He reached out, his hand almost touching my shoulder. I recoiled from him like his touch was poison. And then I laughed. A sharp, hollow laugh, because this man was still so convinced he had done nothing wrong. He had rewritten reality in his head, made himself the victim. In his mind, as long as they hadn't crossed that final line, he wasn't cheating. As if emotional betrayal didn't count. I pointed to the suitcase I had packed for him. "I can't live with you anymore. Pack your things and leave. We'll settle the paperwork as soon as possible. Have your lawyer talk to mine about the asset division." His eyes widened, pure disbelief flashing across his face. "Ashley, do you really not care at all? How can you be this heartless?" I met his gaze, my voice like ice. "Howard, for your sake, you better hope I have some old feelings left for you. Otherwise, this won't be a clean break." His body stiffened. "What do you mean?" I scoffed. "All these years in the workforce and you're still this naive? You wouldn't want to lose everything you've built, would you? And let's not forget about your precious Evelyn." His mask cracked. His voice dropped, sharp and desperate. "If you have a problem, take it out on me. Just don't go after her." There was his real concern. I smirked, then slapped him across the face. "You care so much about her, but you're still clinging to this marriage. Why? Are you performing for an audience?" I took a deep breath, forcing down the rage, the disgust, the sheer exhaustion of it all. "I've already held back more than you deserve, Howard. I sent Olivia away on purpose because I don't want her to know what kind of man her father really is." I pointed to the divorce papers. "Sign them. Or I'll make sure you do." Howard slumped into the chair by the dining table, rubbing his face with both hands. For a long moment we just stared at each other, like two cornered animals, trapped in a battle neither of us wanted to lose. Then I saw my own reflection in his eyes, twisted, enraged, unrecognizable. But it didn't matter. The moment I read those messages, I had already made my decision. Howard never signed the divorce papers. Instead, he packed his bags and left, saying we would talk once I had calmed down. It didn't matter how many times I told him I had made this decision rationally. He refused to believe it. Before leaving, he asked me, "Have you even thought about Olivia?" I shot back, "Did you think about being a husband and a father when you were doing all of this?" I had expected obstacles in this divorce. What I hadn't expected was that the first person to stand by Howard's side would be my own parents. Howard had barely been gone for a day when my mom and dad showed up at my door. My father sat on the couch, smoking in silence. My mother, on the other hand, wore a worried expression as she spoke. "Sweetheart, I've heard what happened. But in a long marriage people make mistakes. Maybe you should give him another chance. You've been together for so many years. Besides, your job isn't stable. If you really divorce him, how will you manage?" I was a freelancer. The past few days, aside from taking Olivia to school, I had barely left my room. I was exhausted. Physically, mentally. Fighting with Howard had already drained me. And now, the people who were supposed to be my support system instead of comforting me, were trying to talk me out of leaving him. I let out a bitter laugh. So, before Howard, I was incapable of surviving. Mom, I'm an adult. I know I can't stay married to him. If you truly care about me, then stop adding more pressure. She sighed, frustrated. Ashley, why are you being so stubborn? Can you stop being so selfish? Olivia is still so young. Do you really want her to grow up without a father? I snapped. Did I say Howard can't see her? Did I say I would keep them apart? He will always be her father. But does that mean I have to pretend nothing happened and keep this sham of a marriage going? If I endure it all and stay, will you give me a gold medal for it? My mother shook her head, exasperated. Fine. Do whatever you want. But Howard is such a good man. If you throw him away, I'd love to see what kind of man is willing to put up with someone like you. She slammed her hand against the table and got up to leave. I walked straight to the door and opened it for them. Seeing my reaction, her anger flared even more. What now? You're kicking us out? You think you're too good for us now? Then she sneered, her voice dripping with contempt. Maybe instead of blaming Howard for everything, you should take a hard look at yourself. Ever consider that your rotten attitude is why men get sick of you? I didn't even know how to describe the disappointment I felt. This woman, my mother, wasn't here to console a daughter who had been betrayed. She was here to confirm a theory, that I, the defective daughter, had caused my own marriage to fail. I chuckled coldly. That's right. I'm an awful woman, one that no one will ever want. But even if no one wants me, I'm still getting divorced. Because even a woman like me knows that I don't need someone else to love me. I can love myself. If you think Howard is so wonderful, maybe you should ask him if he wants to be your son instead. My mother gasped. Ashley, how can you say something like that? Do you think we would have come all this way if we didn't care about you? As she and I argued, my father finally put out his cigarette and spoke. I told you not to come, he muttered to my mother. Your daughter is impossible. She never listens. Why should we even care how she ends up? Whether she lives or dies has nothing to do with us. His voice was indifferent, detached. Like he wasn't talking about his own child but some stranger. It was such a cruel, cutting thing to say, so much so that, for a second, I felt like I had lost my mind. I grabbed a vase from the table and smashed it onto the floor. Get out! Get out! I screamed. But my father's reaction wasn't fear. Instead, he got even more worked up, yelling right back at me. This is how you treat your parents. No wonder you're getting divorced. No man will ever tolerate a woman like you. You'll end up getting beaten to death by your next husband. That was when something inside me shifted. I suddenly stopped feeling angry. As I realized something. The more I lost control, the more satisfied he felt. So I did the one thing he wouldn't expect. I calmed down. I looked him straight in the eye and said, voice cold and even, Dad, whether or not I get beaten to death by a man, that remains to be seen. But one thing's for sure. When you grow old and need my help, you should be very careful about how you treat me now. For the first time that night he fell silent. But he forced a laugh, still trying to look tough. You think you can threaten me? You really are an ungrateful brat. I shrugged. Think whatever you want. My mother, desperate to diffuse the tension, wiped at her eyes. Ashley, please, let's stop fighting. Your father is just worried about you. I shook my head. Mom, I'm being very serious right now. If you're my parents, then shouldn't you prioritize me, my well-being, my happiness? I exhaled, my voice growing quieter. Or did you think I would just take it? That no matter what you say, no matter how much you hurt me, I'll always forgive you. For the first time, my parents had nothing to say. I had finally learned the truth. The people you forgive without limits are the ones who will hurt you the most. My mother suffered complications when giving birth to me. After that, she could no longer have children. So, my father never really liked me. And my mother, she believed it was my fault that she couldn't have more kids. My fault that my father didn't love her. Growing up, I noticed my father was different from the other men in town. He had no interest in leaving. No ambition to build a better life. Even managing our small farm seemed to irritate him. For as long as I can remember, he would sigh and grumble, "If only I had a son to help me run this place." I never had new clothes. Never had candy. I can't recall a single moment where he spoke to me with warmth. But what I do remember is the fighting. Endless arguments. Sometimes my father would hit my mother so hard she'd collapse onto the floor. I'd rush to help her, but she would only hold me tight, sobbing. "If it weren't for you, I would have left him a long time ago." And yet, when I was old enough to understand, I started begging her to leave him. But instead of relief, she slapped me across the face. "How could you be so heartless? How could you wish for your parents to divorce?" The first time life started to get better was when my mother realized I was smart. In our tiny town's elementary school, I was always ranked first in my class. Then middle school came and I continued to excel. Teachers kept telling my mother, "This child has a bright future ahead of her." And just like that, she found purpose again. My father refused to pay my tuition. So my mother left town to work as a housemaid. "I'll save up for your education," she told me. Meanwhile, my father abandoned the farm almost entirely, spending whatever little money she sent home. Thankfully, I survived on scholarships and financial aid. But the biggest fight between my father and me happened when I was in 8th grade. It was right before Christmas. My mother had finally managed to come home for the holiday. She had saved all year. Little by little, but my father had gambled it away. Not only had he lost most of it, but when he came home he demanded more. I had just returned from a friend's house when I saw him punching her to the ground. Blood streamed from her nose. She clung to his leg, begging him not to leave. Her voice broke as she screamed, "Mike, if you walk out that door tonight, I swear I'll kill myself." How pathetic. Even after all the beatings, all the humiliation, her only solution was to harm herself just to make him stay. But I wasn't like her. I wasn't afraid of him. If no one else could put an end to this, I would. I locked the door behind me, stormed into the room and picked up the old landline. Then I called the police. I reported him for domestic violence. Just as I had expected, my mother did not thank me. Instead, she turned on me, her face twisted with fury. "Why did you call the police? He's your father." I stared back at her, unflinching. "If it happens again, I'll call them again. I don't care who it is. Tell me, do you see other families living like this? If I have to, I'll send both of you to jail. I'd rather live alone than like this." She raised her hand to hit me, but I didn't back down. "Go ahead," I challenged her. "You're too scared to fight back against your husband, but you can hit me just fine, huh?" Her hand fell to her side. She only wept. "You don't understand how hard my life is." I stopped listening. I stopped trying to save her. My mother had her own demons to battle. That was her fight, not mine. A few weeks later, she paid off some officers and hired a lawyer to get him out of jail. The day he returned home, he pointed a finger at me and snarled, "I should break your damn legs." I walked straight to the neighbor's house and picked up their phone. I called the police again. My mother dropped to her knees, begging me to stop. "Please don't do this. I promise he won't touch you again." So I put the phone down. And from that day forward, my father never hit me. But he did call me a heartless animal. "You'll never amount to anything," he sneered. "And you sure as hell won't be there for me when I'm old." I smiled coldly. "You're right about one thing. A man like you doesn't deserve anyone's love." Growing up in a family like mine, making it out alive was already a miracle. While I struggled to survive, that man, my so-called father, sat at a gambling table throwing away what little we had. I never saw him as a father. He was nothing more than a wretched man I was unfortunately bound to by blood. Howard and I met in high school. Back then, he was the classic rebellious transfer student, always on the fringes, never taking anything seriously. I, on the other hand, was the hard-working straight-A student. Fate, however, had a twisted sense of humor. On the first day of school, he was assigned as my new seatmate. His mother approached me personally, asking if I could keep an eye on him, help him with his studies. I was caught off guard. Politely, I told her I was just his classmate, nothing more. Howard saw the whole thing. Embarrassed, humiliated, he snapped at his mother in front of everyone, sending her away. Then he turned to me, looking down from his imaginary throne. "Hey, little Miss Perfect. Do you really think being good at school makes you special?" I rolled my eyes and ignored him. Soon enough, seat assignments would change based on our grades, and I couldn't wait to be rid of him. The problem with sitting next to Howard? He was handsome, and that meant trouble. Every day, girls would pass him love letters, chocolates, whatever excuse they could find to get his attention. Between classes, I would bolt out of the classroom, trying to avoid the crowd of admirers. At first, I helped pass the notes along, but after a while, it got annoying. So I stopped. That was when things took a turn. A few girls convinced themselves I was jealous, that I must have a crush on Howard, and that's why I refused to help. They started with small things, scribbling nonsense all over my textbooks. Then came the rumors. They told the whole school I was a prostitute. Then one day I found my seat covered in red ink. I had had enough. So I grabbed the girl who was laughing the loudest by the hair, and dumped an entire bottle of red ink over her head. And just like that, things escalated. Bullying followed, but unlike most victims, I wasn't interested in suffering quietly. One afternoon I made sure I was the last to leave school. 3 of them followed me, taking their chance to attack when I was alone. I let them. Right under the school's security cameras, I took every punch, every kick, letting the footage capture everything. Then when I decided it was enough, I broke free and ran, leading them exactly where I wanted. To the first-floor bathroom. The one where, earlier that day, I had shut off all the water valves. They chased me inside. And the moment they stepped in, they slipped. Because I had coated the floor with lubricant. Then as they scrambled to get up, I grabbed the janitor's mop and dipped it straight into one of the toilet bowls. One by one I beat them with it. By the time Howard arrived, breathless, panicked, I was sitting on the floor looking small and fragile, telling the police how I had barely escaped. The security footage showed everything. Their attacks. My escape. I refused to back down, insisted on pressing charges. With all the rumors they had spread, plus the physical assault, they were expelled. And they paid me a huge settlement. Afterward, Howard sat beside me and asked, "Were they really the only ones who bullied you?" I smirked. "What, are you a detective now?" When he didn't respond, I added, "Whatever you do is none of my business. But at the very least, stop being a damn inconvenience." To my surprise, Howard didn't fight back. Instead, his voice was awkwardly soft. "I'm sorry, Ashley. I know I've caused you a lot of trouble." I didn't care if he apologized or not. But from that day on, he started changing. He helped me carry my books. He watched his words around me. And when the expelled girl's friends tried to get revenge, planning to gang up on me, Howard shut it down immediately. Anyone who touches her has a problem with me. Not that I cared. If they wanted to come after me, I'd just take the beating and sue them for more money. I was desperate back then. Always worried I wouldn't be able to afford school, that I would lose my chance to escape my life. At first, I found Howard annoying. Most of my troubles were because of him. I even switched to another class without telling him. That was the first time he cornered me in the hallway, looking almost lost. "Ashley, do you really hate me that much?" Without hesitation I answered, "Yes." His brows furrowed. "Why?" I sighed. "Because you're a hassle." To my surprise he grinned. "Then I'll stop being a hassle. And if I do, can you try not to hate me?" I didn't answer. Because at that time, I saw everyone as nothing more than temporary figures in my life. People who would come and go. People who didn't matter. Because I would keep moving forward, keep going, until I reached the life I had always dreamed of. From that moment on, Howard changed. He cut ties with his delinquent friends. He started taking school seriously, so much so that, by junior year, he transferred into my class. The first day he walked in, he strolled right up to me and smirked. "Ashley, you're never getting rid of me." I didn't bother responding. His mother, on the other hand, was thrilled. She was convinced that I was the reason for Howard's transformation. And just like that, we became seatmates again. Thanks to Howard, I spent the last semester of high school being well taken care of. Whenever his mom sent him gifts or homemade cookies, there was always a share for me. She'd tell him, "Make sure to give some to that cool classmate of yours. Those cookies, delicious." And on those unbearably hot days, the iced tea Howard brought from home perfectly chilled. One particular afternoon the school's power went out. The classroom felt like a sauna. And the air was stifling. Howard sat beside me lazily flipping through a book. Then without a word he started fanning me with it. That afternoon I took one of the best naps of my life. And when I woke up, my eyes landed on the sweat dripping down his neck. For a split second my heart skipped a beat. But there was no time to dwell on it. Senior year was a blur of competitions, exams, and endless preparation. The closer we got to college entrance exams, the more anxious Howard became. He needed to know which school I was applying to. He kept asking if I was planning to ditch him in college. And to be honest, that was the first time in my life that someone had ever cared about me that much. Howard and I officially got together in college. It happened after something that should have been a tragedy. One night I was working a late shift when a storm rolled in. The rain was pouring and for safety reasons I decided not to return to campus. The next morning, the news broke. The bus I was supposed to take back to school had been in a horrific accident. There were multiple fatalities. My phone had water damage from the rain, so I couldn't contact anyone. By the time I got it repaired, Howard had called me dozens of times. His entire family had been trying to reach me. And when I finally answered, when I finally showed up, Howard pulled me into the tightest embrace, his eyes bloodshot. "Ashley, were you trying to fucking kill me? Do you have any idea how scared I was?" His entire body was shaking. I hugged him back. And in that moment, I realized I had never seen Howard afraid before. Not once. But that night, for the first time in his life, he said he had known real fear. When we first got together, he told me, "The moment I saw you, I knew you'd take my last name one day." And on our wedding day, he grinned and said, "See? I told you this would happen." Back then I laughed. I truly believed we would be happy. Howard came from a warm, loving family. His parents had been together for decades and their love never seemed to fade. In all the years I spent with them, I never once saw them fight. I thought their present would be our future. But the Howard who once loved me so fiercely, and the Howard standing before me now, they felt like two completely different people. By the second month of our stalemate, I had stopped expecting anything from Howard. But that night, half asleep, lost in a haze of exhaustion, I suddenly felt an arm wrap around my waist. I screamed. The voice-activated bedside lamp flickered on, flooding the room with light. Howard's face came into view, his expression heavy with guilt. For a brief second I was too stunned to react. Then, before I could move, he pinned me down. "Ashley, it's me." And then he kissed me, clumsy, desperate, reckless. I immediately raised my hand to slap him, but he grabbed my wrist, holding me in place. That was when I kicked him hard right between the legs. He let go instantly. His breath came in ragged gasps, his body tensed in pain. Then he finally muttered, "Why? Before, wasn't this what you... Howard, can you stop playing dumb?" I cut him off coldly. I knew exactly what he was referring to. After I gave birth to Olivia, Howard had barely touched me. It was nothing like before. Back when we first got together, when he couldn't keep his hands off me. At first I thought the problem was me. I had scars from the C-section. So I had them treated. I started working out, getting beauty treatments. I changed, piece by piece, stripping away parts of myself to become someone I thought he would want again. Once I even took my friend's advice and bought a sexy nightgown. The thin, sheer fabric clung to my skin, making me feel like some pathetic actress in a scene I wasn't meant for. Maybe our routine had become too mundane. Maybe he just needed a little excitement. But the moment I pulled back the covers under the dim glow of the bedroom lights, I saw it. That flicker of discomfort in his eyes. I froze. Every movement, every carefully arranged pose, all of it stiffened under the weight of his reaction. And then, as if he were bracing himself for some unbearable duty, his face twisted into something resembling resignation. That was the final blow. Furious, I yanked the blanket over myself and turned away. There is nothing more humiliating for a woman than seeing that look in her husband's eyes. And still I blamed myself. I told myself not to force it. I even worried that maybe he was struggling with something deeper, so I secretly consulted a therapist. But when I carefully, cautiously suggested he might want to see someone about it, he exploded. He accused me of being obsessive, of overthinking everything. "Ashley, not everything has to be about sex. Why do you have to be so needy all the time?" I still remember how my face burned in that moment, how my mind went blank. I had spent months agonizing over what was wrong, whether I was the problem, only for my own husband to make me feel like some desperate, unsatisfied woman. After that, I convinced myself to let it go. If he didn't want it, fine. Our love could be platonic, we had been together for years after all. But the truth? The real reason? It wasn't about routine. It wasn't about stress. It wasn't about me. It was because he was already emotionally invested in someone else. I heard soft knocking at the door. "Mom." Olivia's sleepy voice called out. "Are you okay?" I swallowed hard, pushing the tremor out of my voice. "I'm fine, sweetheart. Just had a bad dream." She hesitated. "Do you want me to sleep with you tonight? That way you won't be scared." My heart clenched. My daughter. My one and only blessing from this marriage. I forced a smile. "No, baby, I'll be okay. Go back to bed." Once Olivia was safely back in her room, I turned to Howard. "Get out." He didn't move. Instead, he looked at me, almost pleading. "Ashley, do you really have to go this far? Do you want our daughter to grow up with a broken home like yours?" That did it. My blood boiled. I let out a sharp laugh, pure ice. "Howard, if you care so much about Olivia, then what the hell was your affair? Should I wait until she's older and show her what kind of father you really are?" He scowled. "Ashley, why do you have to be so extreme? People make mistakes. Can't you let this go?" I stared at him, and for the first time I truly saw him, a stranger. I had nothing more to say. So I simply asked, "Do I need to call the police?" His jaw clenched. Then, finally, he turned toward the door. But before he left, he muttered under his breath, "Do whatever you want, Ashley. But no matter what, I'm not signing those divorce papers." The door shut behind him. I stood there in silence. "No matter what?" I murmured. "Howard, you will sign those papers. One way or another." In the days that followed, I did nothing more than sit outside Evelyn's office building. And just like that, Howard lost his mind. He came rushing over, grabbing my arm, trying to drag me away. Evelyn never even showed her face. "Ashley, what do you want from me? I've already told you, nothing happened between us. What more do you need?" I yanked my arm free, crossing my arms as I watched him panic. Then, with a calm, deliberate voice, I said, "Howard, do you really not know what I want?" His jaw tightened. "I won't agree to a divorce. If you're mad, take it out on me, but leave her out of it." I didn't respond. Instead, I walked toward the elevator. And Evelyn, she cracked first. She came down before I even reached the lobby, her eyes already red-rimmed. The moment she saw Howard, she ran off, like some tragic heroine who had suffered a great injustice. Howard turned back to me, furious. "Are you happy now?" Before I could answer, an office worker stepped out of the elevator. "Miss Jones, sorry to keep you waiting. Mr. Brown is very interested in your marketing proposal. He's waiting in his office for you." I shrugged, then patted Howard's shoulder with mock sympathy. "You and your mistress have such fragile nerves. I have a feeling Evelyn and I will be seeing each other a lot in the future. How do you think she'll handle that?" That afternoon, Howard's texts started flooding in again. "Ashley, this really has nothing to do with Evelyn. Please stop pressuring her, she can't take it." Pressure? Funny. If she had done nothing wrong, why would she be feeling any pressure at all? I typed my response. "Howard, my patience has limits. I haven't even done anything yet and you're already this nervous. If I really decide to take action, don't blame me when you regret it." He didn't reply after that. But Evelyn wasn't as strong as she pretended to be. She started venting to her close colleagues, hoping for sympathy. Instead, the entire company started whispering behind her back. The gossip spread like wildfire. And she, the poor, fragile mistress, couldn't handle the shame. One night she slit her wrists. I was fast asleep when my phone rang. Howard's voice was eerily calm, but his words dripped with ice. "Ashley, I should have known you wouldn't let her go. Are you satisfied now?" Took me a moment to understand. Evelyn had tried to kill herself. And Howard blamed me. For a second I felt something close to pity. Then I just felt exhausted. I let out a bitter laugh. "I did nothing. Howard, this was all the result of your own actions. Did I make you cheat? Did I force her to be so shameless that she ran around seeking validation, only to end up humiliated?" Howard's voice grew harsher. "Do you have no compassion? No empathy? Is this what you wanted? Fine. You win. I'll give you the damn divorce. The call ended abruptly. I didn't hesitate. I grabbed the divorce papers and drove straight to the hospital. Divorce was always a battle of attrition. Howard had been stalling, resisting, making it as difficult as possible. Sure, I could have fought it out legally, but that would have been a long, messy process. No. He was emotionally compromised, and I wasn't going to waste this opportunity. When I arrived at Evelyn's floor, Howard saw me and immediately lost his temper. He kicked over a chair, his voice raw with frustration. Jesus Christ, Ashley, when the fuck is this going to end? I didn't even flinch. I simply lifted the folder in my hands, waving it lightly. He froze. For a moment, his expression was unreadable. Then his lips curled in disdain. You're heartless. Still, he snatched the pen from my hand and, without hesitation, signed his name. I took my copy, neatly tucked it away into my folder, and without a word, I turned and walked away. After that day, I never saw Howard again. Months passed before I heard anything about him, and it wasn't from him. It was Evelyn who came looking for me. She showed up, face drawn with worry, and told me that Howard was in bad shape. Drinking himself into oblivion. Quit his job. He wanted me to check on him. And, of course, she insisted, once again, that nothing had ever happened between them. That I had misunderstood everything from the very beginning. I sighed. The divorce was finalized. Why the hell was she still dragging me into this? So I didn't bother with pleasantries. I don't need to hear this. And honestly, Evelyn, this is what you chose. You worked so hard to be with him, so go ahead and enjoy it. Her face darkened. Do you have to be so cruel? Howard loved you for years, and yet you can just cut him off like this. You really are heartless. No wonder no one could ever truly love you. I didn't react. Instead, I tilted my head and smiled. Evelyn, take a guess. If I hate you both so much, why do you think I agreed to meet you today? She frowned. Why? I leaned in slightly and said, voice dripping with amusement. Because my life has been a little boring lately. I needed some entertainment. And watching you two make a mess of your own choices? It's like watching a real-life freak show. Her face burned red with anger. She pointed a shaking finger at me, but no words came out. Then, with one last glare, she spun on her heel and stormed off. Life gradually returned to normal. Sometimes my mother would send gifts for Olivia and me. Other times she would subtly, or not so subtly, suggest that I should remarry, that Olivia needed a father. I remained calm and told her to stop. These gestures, these half-hearted attempts at care, were meaningless now. I had long outgrown the need for anyone else to hold me up. As for her worries about old age, I had already been financially supporting her. But beyond that, there was nothing more. If she wanted to talk about emotions, well, when I needed her the most, she wasn't there. And if she wanted to talk about benefits, if she expected me to be her retirement plan, then she should have at least invested in this so-called asset first. The reality was, I had seen this coming a long time ago. All through my school years, I worked side jobs, wrote articles for newspapers, because I knew if I relied on her, I would never finish my education. Most of her savings had gone to my father's gambling habits. One day over the phone she snapped at me. Aren't you afraid Olivia will turn out like you? Heartless. I exhaled slowly. And what exactly have I done to you? She huffed. You barely talk to me. Is that a crime? I laughed bitterly. You had no plan, no direction in life. And now you expect me to clean up after you. Do you think that's fair? I've been the one holding your life together for years. Your bills, your medical expenses, everything. And yet somehow I'm still the villain. She didn't respond. Because deep down she knew I was right. As for Olivia, I had her because I wanted her, because I loved her. Not because I needed her to fill a void or secure my future. She's my mirror. If she ever resents me, then it means I must have done something wrong as her mother. But my mother? She never understood how innocent, how unconditional a child's love is, until she lost it. I never stopped Howard from seeing Olivia. After all, no matter what happened between us, he was still her father. As long as he remained a good father, I had no reason to interfere. If he ever turned into someone like my father, that would be a different story. But under normal circumstances, I wanted Olivia to have as much love in her life as possible. Time passed. Howard's life gradually returned to normal. He never got together with Evelyn. But they still had meals together, went out on walks, and she still visited his place daily, to cook for him. One day when Howard took Olivia to an amusement park, I met up with them afterward to bring her home. He struck up small talk, telling me he was planning to start his own business, something related to car loans and rentals. Since he was Olivia's father, I kindly reminded him, "The current economy isn't the best for startups. Maybe you should reconsider." His expression darkened instantly. "Ashley, do you really think this was all just my fault? You never encourage me. You always assume the worst. No wonder things turned out like this." I cut him off immediately. "You're right, Howard. Other than being Olivia's parents, we have nothing left between us. I was only giving a suggestion. You don't have to take it. And from now on, I'd appreciate it if we kept our conversations strictly about Olivia." With that, I took Olivia's hand and walked away. After that day, I avoided any unnecessary interactions with him. We simply lived our own separate lives, peacefully coexisting, but nothing more.
Howard had seen Ashley's coldness before, but it wasn't until that coldness was directed at him that he realized just how sharp it could be. That night, as he sat alone, he suddenly thought of the chocolate ice cream cake she had brought him the day everything fell apart. By the time she left, it had melted into a mess. On a whim, he had picked up a spoon and taken a bite, and all he could taste was bitterness. He had eaten that same cake for years. It was from his favorite bakery. So why did it taste so different that night? He had still clung to a shred of hope, thinking that because Ashley allowed him to see Olivia, she was leaving the door open just a little. But every conversation, every interaction after that had crushed whatever delusions he had left. Ashley was done with him. And yet, Howard couldn't accept it. She thought he was incapable? Fine. He would prove her wrong. With that in mind, he took his parents' entire life savings and threw himself headfirst into starting a business. For the first 6 months, there was no income. The longer it went on, the more panic set in. But then he would see Evelyn's eager, admiring eyes. "You can do this, Howard. You've never failed at anything. I believe in you. You'll make it work." So he convinced himself to keep going, kept pouring in more money, until there was nothing left. Debts piled up, and when desperation took over, he snapped. He made one bad decision after another. The police caught him for theft and drug trafficking. And just like that, 10 years in prison. His vision went black when he heard the sentence. His parents ran everywhere, trying to save him, trying to lessen the damage. But Ashley, she only visited him once. She stood before him, completely indifferent, as if looking at a stranger. There was no anger, no sadness, just nothing. She no longer worried for him, no longer planned for him. He thought back to when he had just graduated, how she had sat beside him, carefully helping him rewrite his resume. Back then, she had treated his success as her own. After they got married, she had gone even further, hosting dinners to maintain his office connections, arranging outings with the wives of key executives. Every step forward in his career, every single promotion, she had been right there beside him. They had been a family, a happy whole family. And now he had nothing. At that moment, he finally understood. They had truly become two parallel lines, never to intersect again. If not for Olivia, he wouldn't have even seen her that day. Ashley had always been decisive. He had spent years trying to make her accept him, and in the end, he was the one who gave her every reason to walk away. He wondered, would 17-year-old Howard hate him for losing her? Would his younger self look at the man he had become and feel disgusted? Howard never saw Ashley again. The only news he got about her came from his parents. She got remarried. Her husband was younger than her, thoughtful and kind. Olivia was thriving, confident, warm, and full of life. During school breaks, she traveled the world with Ashley and her new husband. To anyone looking in, they were a perfect, happy family. And that life, it should have been his. The last time Howard saw Evelyn was right before he was released. She came out of nowhere, demanding to see him. And when she spoke, it was with pure resentment. "This is all your fault. You ruined my life." Howard blinked, confused. So he let her talk, and soon enough he understood. She had gotten married, but years later, her husband found out about their past. Now they were in the middle of a bitter, ugly divorce. Howard laughed, a hollow sound. "I guess every choice we make catches up to us eventually." Evelyn glared at him. But he wasn't even listening anymore, because in that moment, he could no longer lie to himself. He had spent so much time blaming Ashley, convincing himself she had pushed him away. But the truth was, he had done this to himself. Ashley had always been brutally honest. When their marriage had started falling apart, she had never played games. She didn't run. She didn't hide. She had gone straight to him, demanding answers. But the more she confronted him, the more he feared her seeing the truth. And when the truth finally came out, she didn't break down. She didn't beg. She simply walked away. After his release, he wanted to see her. But he had no reason to. No excuse. The only time he caught a glimpse of her was when he went to see Olivia. From a distance, he saw her leaning against another man's shoulder, laughing. Ashley had always been someone who moved forward, and she was never the type to look back.